I think this movie is getting delayed not because of SAG-AFTRA strikes, but because Rachel Zegler is Disney's latest PR nightmare, and the more she talks and tweets, the further and further away society gets from accepting this chick as a Disney princess, and the less money Disney makes on tickets. Hi y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. So last Friday we got the news that Rachel Zegler's Disney's Snow White remake was actually going to be delayed from March 2024 until March of 2025. If you ask me, I think they're just delaying saying that it's gonna be canceled, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that, but we also, with this announcement, got our first promo image from the film, and we gotta talk about this. So this is the picture. Let's just analyze the fact that the dwarves are all CGI. And see, originally Disney had 7 diverse stand-ins because they thought making dwarves were offensive, but apparently what they're doing instead is just having 7 CGI dwarves. And what I find incredibly interesting about these 7 CGI dwarves is that they're all played by one guy. They hired an actor who truly does have dwarfism. His name is Martin Kleba, and he's going to be portraying every single one of the 7 dwarves. You know, so Disney, which is the leading authority on inclusivity and diversity and political correctness, they basically told the entire community of people that have dwarfism, hey, you know what? You don't f***ing matter. We don't need to give you roles because we're just gonna have one guy play 7 different people. You would think that Disney would be all about providing opportunities for people, right? Because every time they make a casting choice that we don't like for any particular reason, they take it upon themselves to take up arms and call us bigots and misogynists and all kinds of different phobes. So why would they not also want to provide opportunities to 7 actors to have starring roles? Wait, I forgot, because Disney is hypocritical as f*** and doesn't actually care about the agendas they preach. They are about rage baiting and trying to make a quick buck off of a classic. And let's go back to that picture for a second. As somebody who's been in the cosplay community for almost 8 years now, this whole deal to me looks way more like a Party City promo picture of a cheap costume as opposed to like somebody really trying to be Snow White. A real dress, a real effort in hair and makeup. This to me just does not look like it. You know, usually when you try to portray a character, you try to also embody certain elements of their physicality. When I dressed up as Black Widow, for instance, I put on a red wig, I put on light colored contacts, I also don't use as much bronzer because I'm naturally tan. So you would think that to portray Snow White, they would try to do a little bit more with Rachel Zegler, on account of the fact that Disney themselves in the original film described Snow White as lips as red as the rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow. That is Disney's original interpretation. That's not the Grimm's fairy tale one. That is literally what Disney said. But see, that's not even my major issue with this casting choice. And we've talked about Rachel Zegler on this channel before, but every time I hear something else out of this chick's mouth or her Twitter account or whatever, she just gets further and further away from the sheltered harbor of my patience. Let's go back and listen to this interview again with her and Gal Gadot.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Oh, and if that wasn't enough,
Whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. never revisited Snow White again.
So yeah, we've got a few major takeaways here. The first is that the original Snow White is incredibly creepy. It's just scary, and the ride at Disneyland is obviously not meant for children because it's spooky. On another note, the love story in Snow White is incredibly disturbing because heaven forbid a young prince hear a princess sing and fall in love with her. However pointless and fantastical that might be, it's literally a Disney princess movie. It's not that f***ing serious. Additionally, this can't be a love story. Every Disney princess, every girl has to turn into some kind of leader or like battleship princess. We can't just have one princess singing in a forest and sewing clothes with birds. That's apparently unacceptable. And lastly, the existence of men is so irrelevant and so offensive that they might as well cut out the prince entirely, because what the f do we need him for, right? And despite her dog shit opinions, we can at least say that Rachel Zegler is full of conviction and honesty, and she really believes in the bullshit that she's spewing, right? Wrong! We also have these clips.
Well, you can't even go to Disneyland anymore. Have you ever been to that Snow White ride at Disneyland?
I get stopped for photos every time I'm online for the Snow White ride, and it is I have to pretend like, oh God, well, crazy that we're in front of this.
Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride?
And I was like, God, I hope no one, because every time they come up to me, I'm always online for this freaking ride. I mean,
Wow.
it's one of the original, I'm a really big Disney fan. I grew up at the Disney parks. My parents took me every summer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's like, it's a part of my upbringing. It's my favorite thing, so.
If you think back on what I showed you earlier, she literally mentioned that this exact ride was horrifying to her and that she went on it once and thought it was terrible.
Was terrified of it, never revisited Snow White again. It's a part of my upbringing. It's my favorite thing, so.
So basically, when Rachel Zegler wants to be our femme savior and teach us all the wrongs of the original Snow White, which was again produced in 1937, she trashes it, calls it creepy, says the ride is horrifying, everything is wrong about it, when she wants to be cutting edge and be the first to lead the charge of Disney girl bosses. But when it's not convenient and she wants to kiss ass on a talk show, then her entire life revolves around it, and apparently this chick has nothing better to do than to stand in line for that ride all the time, hoping that somebody will ask her for a picture. I hope that she knows that that's what that sounded like. Can you imagine? I find it kind of f***ing pathetic that she's in Hollywood and still needs to chase clout this hard. Oh, and speaking about chasing clout, let's talk about what the original Snow White represents. The original Snow White is not just a love story, but it's really a tale of kindness prevailing. The princess has her life spared by the huntsman, she is taken in and befriends the 7 dwarves, and when it seems like all hope is lost, she is saved by true love by a prince who is just so enamored with her singing voice that they get to live happily ever after. It sounds like a whole lot of bullshit, but it's a kid's movie, so what are we gonna do? It's a nice story, and that's sometimes all kids need, is a nice story, an escape from reality, because they're children and they should get to enjoy these fantasies without Disney shoving an agenda at them. The original Snow White is pure-hearted, kind, a little naive, but she's honestly a good person. Rachel Zegler has basically ruined her career by ranting about bullshit, deciding to die on a hill that really is not all that relevant. And honestly, if we look at her Twitter, these are real screen caps from her Twitter/X that I took this morning. This chick literally spends half her time retweeting posts about herself. So people calling her their most beloved and making literal video compilations of her on red carpets and interviews. Fan accounts talking about how beautiful she is and calling her and her boyfriend their parents. That's what this woman deems relevant to be reblogging, just things about herself. Oh, and while we're on the subject, yes, she does have a boyfriend who she has been with for several years and posts about all the time. Here's one from National Boyfriend Day where she calls him her bestest friend and also mentions that he has rallied prayed for her through this life and supported her the whole way, which I find really interesting that somebody that is in this committed a relationship and loves a man this much is that offended by a Disney princess having a prince and a Disney movie being a love story. Guys, I think we might have just found the biggest f***ing hypocrite in Hollywood, and that's saying something because like 99% of Hollywood is full of hypocrites. But Rachel Zegler takes the cake, or should I say, takes the apple. Little Snow White pun for you.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
All right, okay, I'll take it. That was weak. But anyway, I think it's great news that this is getting delayed even further. Of course, people are going to continue to say that it's getting delayed because of the strikes, which makes sense. SAG-AFTRA still hasn't resolved anything with the studios. If you ask me, the strikes are not to be blamed for the delays, but Rachel Zegler is to be blamed because she is a PR nightmare, and I don't think that Disney can figure out how to repackage this absolute nightmare of a movie and sell it to us when we've already heard all the shit that its star has had to say. I guess we'll see what happens in the next 2 years with this upcoming Disney disaster. That's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram, and if you'd like to support my content creation and get some awesome pictures in the process, be sure to check out my Patreon. I will link both in the description below, and let me know your thoughts on Disney's Snow White remake being delayed in the comments below.